Alright guys, so here we are in the middle of a recap job on the Classic motherboard. This is for the Macintosh Classic. And I've already started removing caps, and I want to tell you what I'm doing and why. Now, I am not an expert rework guy. I mean, I don't do a lot of this type of work, but I do enough of it to get by. So here's the process I'm going through. The first thing I'm going to do is take some fresh solder braid, desoldering braid, and I'm going to wick up the solder by putting the braid between the tip of the iron. Let me cut off a clean section here. You're going to go through some of this stuff. I mean, it's always good to have a little bit on hand. It's good stuff to use. So I'm going to be taking the tip of the iron. Let me angle the camera so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to kind of take the braid and put it right between the iron tip and what part of the leg is exposed on the cap. So with these aluminum caps, the contacts are on the bottom. Yeah, let me try to get that. There we go. The contacts are on the bottom. So the solder is going to be wicked outward. And it makes it easier if you take a little bit of flux and kind of swab it around the cap. The flux helps conduct the heat, and it allows the solder to flow freely. And you're going to get more solder out that way than if you don't use the flux. Now, some people will add more solder to the joint, and that also can help too. But we're just going to kind of swab the cap like that. We're going to take our iron. I'm using a 25-watt iron. This iron has proven to be a very nice utility iron. I use it for just about everything. And we're going to kind of wick the solder up like that. You don't want to hold it on too long because you'll burn the board. Not that I've done that before or anything, because I have. I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to be. But, you know, I've repaired a lot of things over the years like this, and I've had pretty good luck. Now, once I wick up as much solder as I'm going to get, you'll see that the cap will start to work loose. Then I'm going to go back to the other side and do the same thing. Being careful with where I place the pigtail of this desoldering braid. So the cap is now fairly loose. I should be able to kind of pick it off by heating it up just a little bit. And work it one side to the other. This is where things get dicey because you can easily destroy not only neighboring components, but you can also ruin the land underneath the tracers very easily. So you want to be very careful. I suggest practicing this procedure on something you don't really care about, because this is how people ruin boards, as said with experience. Now, we were lucky. The pads remained firmly attached to the board. We did not lose anything. And the cap came off fairly nicely. So, make sure that we don't burn any neighboring components. I think we're good there. Then we're going to take some desoldering braid, and we're going to clean the pads off, removing all the old solder. Just like that. You can't see what I'm doing, because, yeah. So, angle the camera like this. Alright. So we're going to be cleaning the pads off with our desoldering braid, just like that. If you really want to learn how to solder properly, watch Louis Rossman's videos. The guy's a pro. And there's others, too. And that is how we clean the pads off. Just like that. So then we're going to, I mean, I could at this point take some flux remover and clean the remaining flux off. I use a product called Flux Off at work. Funny story about that. I had to order some flux, and I also ordered some Flux Off. And the woman who does the purchasing for me suggested that I not buy the flux to begin with. She was being funny, obviously. But sometimes you never know. Alright, we're going to... that's not what I want to use. I want to use leaded solder because it works a little bit nicer. Why do people like leaded solder so much? Well, it flows very nicely. a lot of the older electronics guys, DIY guys, will find that they prefer leaded solder over all else because I'm going to clean my tip real quick. Here we go. If the tip starts to get ashy, you want to clean that. This is actually far too thick. This solder is very thick. Probably a little too thick for this project, but it's what I got on hand. I already did that one. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to clean that off. Alright guys, so we've got the recap job is now done. All 7 caps. All 8 caps. These 4. And then there's some over here on the audio side. I won't lie, this was a challenge because I'm using all the wrong tools. I've never really done surface mount caps before. This is the first time I've ever done them. I've done plenty of through hole over the years, but never surface. I nicked the wiring harness connector with my iron, unfortunately, but not bad enough. It should be fine. It should be okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not a hard thing to do. It's one of the easiest projects for any budding electronics enthusiast to do. I mean, if you really want to learn how to solder, watch a lot of YouTube videos, and some of the first projects you do should be maybe recapping old boards like this, because it gives you a good taste of how to work around sensitive components and how to use the tools in their basic form. Now these boards, there's actual video footage of these being made, not this exact part, but the 2CI board that was made in the United States, and I believe in Fremont, California. There's plenty of footage of how these boards were originally produced. The board was all automated, completely automated process as far back as the late 1980s, and possibly even earlier. And what would happen is the board would be silk screened. Well, first a completed, bare circuit board was produced, but then they would silk screen solder paste everywhere it needs to be. Then the board would go through a machine, a pick-and-place machine. And that is why these capacitors are packaged this way. That's what they're meant for. A pick-and-place machine would pick, it would be rolls of these things. It would actually look like a movie film. And this stuff would run through the machine, and the pick-and-place machine would peel back automatically. It would kind of peel back this tape here, and it would pick up one of these caps and then place it on the board where it needs to be. Fully automated process, and it happened so fast that the components would be placed on the machine in just a couple seconds. The whole board would be laid out, probably about a minute or so, maybe 2. Then it would run through a reflow oven that would have a very tightly regulated heat range that it would run in, and that heat would melt the solder, and each component would just sort of drop into place wherever it needed to be. It would kind of settle on its own. And that's how they were produced. We're trying to rework the board using hand tools. And I am not a highly skilled solderer. I've done a lot of soldering in my life, but not surface mount. So it's not a particular area of expertise for me. So let's get this board back in here. We're going to slide it in. I'm not done with this machine, so even if we're good to go, I still have to clean the wiring harness. And I contacted Deoxit, and they have agreed, because they had previously offered this, I don't know why me, but they offered to send me some free products. So the kind folks at Deoxit are donating a shipment of Deoxit. So I'll be able to clean this wiring harness connector, hopefully, very soon. And I've already sent in the order. They asked me what I wanted. I said I wanted a few different products to try out, and they are sending me every single thing I ever asked for. So, Deoxit, you're the man. Oh boy, we're going to test it out. We got the board back in, we got the caps done. Got to solve 2 problems. Two Two problems. We got to fix the audio, which we didn't have really any amplification at all coming out of that amp. And we've got to fix the problem where it won't acknowledge floppy disk insertion, which is really weird. Okay. Let's see what we got. Let's power this baby up. Here we go. Ooh, we have sound. We have sound. Oh my god. Maybe it worked. And I don't see it giving me the chimes of death or anything, which is always a good sign. Let's see what's going to happen. Alright. Okay, we got a Happy Mac. Yay. And it says, welcome to Macintosh. Yay. Alright. Well, it wasn't a complete abysmal failure. Eh? That drive sounds really nice. I mean, really, it just, on its own, it just, you run it for a few hours and boom. Look at that. It sounds great. So we're going to play with the sound control panel. I want to hear how it sounds. See if we're out of the woods or maybe we still have some work to do. I ended up, by the way, using the 16 volt 1 microfarad cap on the audio circuit because it was recommended by some other Mac enthusiasts, and I figured, what the hell, maybe it works, maybe it blows the hell up. I don't know. We're gonna see what happens. Now let's see if we're out of the woods or if we still have to do some navigating. I gotta say though, I mean, this Mac has a perfect display. So if it doesn't work, if it completely fails miserably, at least I have a great analog chassis to work off of. Motherboards can be found everywhere. I mean, they're a dime a dozen. Just kidding, they're not anymore. They were. Here we go. Droplet, indigo, quack, beep, Sosumi, Wiley. Bring it up a little bit. Bring it up even more. It's a little overdriven. A little overdriven. Sounds pretty good. Yeah. We may have a few, you know, I mean, again, this thing's 27 years old, so it's not going to be perfect, but all the caps seem to have helped that situation. Now let's put a floppy disk in there and see what happens. Oh, it's reading it. It's reading it. Oh my god. I'm going to freak out. Like a teenage girl at a Justin Bieber concert. I'm losing it. Alright. Alright. SimCity. Will she play SimCity? This is encouraging, guys. This is encouraging. Here we go. Now, we're not done yet. We still have a wiring harness that desperately needs to be deoxidized. And thanks to the kind folks at Deoxid, we're going to be getting some sample products to play with, and we're going to try to get that wiring harness cleaned up, looking like new again. So I'm going to load a saved city and see what happens. Dullsville. It's loading. It's working. Is there music in this version? I don't think there's background music in this. I think it just has basic sounds. So like sound on. Let's hit the bulldozer. This thing's running great. Not bad for an old piece of shit, huh? Huh? Alright, let's bulldoze a building. Turn the volume up a little bit. Brightness is way too high. I'm going to bring that down a little bit too. I like to run my vintage displays at lower than normal brightness. It helps preserve them. It stresses the circuitry out a little less. So we're going to drop it down a bit. And we're going to bring our sound up. Okay, here we go. Now keep in mind that a weak connection at the wiring harness going to the analog board can affect a lot of different things, depending on which pin is badly corroded. And I say that because you can actually have a mild voltage drop or an inconsistency in voltage, which can affect a variety of subsystems. If it's the 5 volt or the 12 volt or ground, you never know what could happen. We are still experiencing issues at the audio level. For example, it seems to be losing ground. It's actually quieting down. It's actually gone. Look at that. We lost all sound. Now it's back to nothing. So, you know, we're not out of the woods. Something's going on here. So, I don't know what that could be. Now it's like distorting really badly. Can you hear it? So the distortion is really getting bad. Once we clean that wiring harness, we may solve the problem, but we may still have work to do. I may end up just replacing the board. Maybe I'll grab another board, recap it, and see what happens. I don't know what else could be wrong. It's possible there could be other issues. It could be at the analog board level. We could be losing voltage. Now, to confirm that or deny that theory, I'm going to try something. Because we know that these issues were also linked to the floppy drive not running correctly. And I'm going to, let's bear in mind that the floppy drive would read and write and acknowledge and mount and all that if it was booted off of the internal ROM. Never had a problem with that. Let's dismount the drive. See if it comes back when you put it back in there. Yeah, it's mounting. But we still have some audio issues to work through. And like I said, it could be a combination of problems further up the chain. It could be... Now, I did check. Headphone sound is just as distorted as the speaker sound. So I'm kind of hedging my bets on a voltage issue. Something isn't running to spec. It might be worthwhile to maybe hook it up to a multimeter and see what the voltages are and if they're too low or how even too high. But for now, I think I'm going to cut my losses and go to bed. It's getting late. So I'm going to call this a success. Not a roaring success, but we did get the sound back. You know, we still have some things to look into here. As it warms up, again, I see sound is becoming more distorted. Let's go back to that again. Yeah. Now it's like gone. Yeah, it's still there, but... So there's something else going on, possibly a bad resistor, possibly something else. Don't know what, but I'm going to look into it, and I am welcoming information if anybody has any ideas that may have actually experienced this before on one of these old compact Macs. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So, till then, we're going to shut her down, and we're going to put her away, and we'll be back once that stuff comes in the mail, and we'll be cleaning the wiring harness. Till then.